this is Pieter Colpaert for we lost Pieter. You're like pretty popular, not too much.
Who knows Chloé?
Nobody does.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
So welcome, I'm very happy to do this workshop today with you. Last year was the OKFest. I don't know if some of you that in the room were here when we worked on the open data transport also. So this year we feel like a lot of us like roll their sleeves to do stuff, to make things happen and turn all these nice work into actions. So that's the time where we can share all these actions and try to go further and to see what the next steps are and how we can like all move further. Pieter, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Pieter Colpaert. I'm the coordinator of the Open Transport Working Group at the Open Knowledge Foundation. And with this working group, we really try to get this open transport thing happening. Because in the end, there are two kinds of data in the world, right? There's the sexy data, and there's the data that's beautiful from the inside. So the positive thing about open transport is that it's very sexy data, because everyone wants to use transport data. Everyone wants to use it in their product. But the problem is the data is very dirty at the inside. It's not beautiful at the inside. So that's actually something we want to try to make better. Chloé, who are you?
Hello, I'm Chloé. I work with SNCF, which is a French railway company on open data I worked for them for like 2 years. And I just set up my own company called 5x5, which is helping complex organizations to open their data, which is like a vast program. And so I'm like obviously interested in open transport and how we can help and give like transport company to new results.
So 1 year and exactly 1 year and 1 day ago, we were at Open Knowledge Festival. Who was there with us? I see three people who were there. Yeah, great. What we did then was we created this Open Transport Data Manifest. That was like the first real gathering of people interested in open transport, and we decided like, what do we need to do and what do we all agree on? Like this entire group of stakeholders, there were people from the European Commission, there were people from the railway companies, there were people from private transport companies, and that's what we did. And you can find this manifesto at this URI. It's epsiplatform.eu/transport. So over there, what did we say? We said there's a huge economical benefit for opening up transport. There's a huge social benefit, and there's a huge environmental benefit. So I just want to ask this question, but just say, how far do you live from your work? Can you just keep that in your head? Okay, now think about the units you used for it. Was it minutes, or was it hours, or was it kilometers? Was it from who of this? What it was time? Who said time? Okay, this is interesting, because in fact time is really hard to measure. It's something we need open data for. It's something we need actually to have this data and to say, well, okay, I live so far because I can take the bus and it takes me, for instance, 20 minutes. Now this is nice, and this is I think the future where we are heading towards. And this is for instance nice visualization of some friends from Berlin. It's Stefan Weermeijer, who actually created from the open data made available by bus companies or by railway companies. You can put a dot on that. It's called magnificent if you want to test it yourself. And you say, okay, at most 20 minutes from any point in the highlighted area, you will be able to get there. So over here, from this point with public transport, you'll be able to go towards this entire point. So this is a whole new thing, because distance is not just a radius. Distance is not a circle. Distance is something like this. So this is also directly an economical benefit, because people can work a certain time distance from their work, not a certain kilometer distance. So this is a very important thing. And actually businesses come out of this. And this is a bit of publicity from my own side. But yes. But over here we just provide software for office buildings. And of course over here we also put the buses that pass nearby the thing. Is that inherent for our business model? No, but without the data we would not be able to have this product. So we said at the workshop, like, just imagine that all this data is there, then we actually would be able to make a global intermodal route planning system. This is like our dream. We would be able to have from point A, like I'm at this point right now. I want to go to China, some point in China. Well, it needs to give you all everything you want according to your requirement. And this is what some very capable people at from our community are doing. This is for instance OpenTripMapper, which just tries to gather all the open data from all around the world and tries to give you a cross-border route planning system. So this is just open software. You can install it. You can play with it. It will create cool things. And actually, one of the people who know a lot about this, who will tell you a lot about this, is here. Where is Andrew? Yeah, over there. You see him wave. If you have questions about this, ask him. So after that, we just said, okay, what do we need? Well, we need everyone just to work together to be able to have these tools. We want these tools that are in place so that people can actually open up their data. We just need to make this open data thing happen by making the barrier as low as possible. So the next slides are just this. Well, like there's no legal framework, but I won't waste more of our time. So yeah. So what we should do is just play our part and all work together. And this is what we did with the Open Transport Data Working Group. And this is what we are still doing with the Open Transport Data Working Group. And that's why I'm really thankful that you're with so many over here in our current operation. So with no further ado, I would like to give the word to Pieter, who would, because right now we're going to sketch 3 problems and 3 possible solutions for this problem that we think are so please, Pieter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christian Belmont. So, thank you, Peter. I've worked in different companies with open data, with open transportation data. And we decided there's something missing, and this project is called Station.io. So what is it? It's going to make a knowledge base of every transport point that exists all over the world. So why? Transport open data is doing quite well actually. So we listen here more and more people are opening the data, and because the rival companies opening the data, other companies are now opening also. It's getting bigger and faster, and I'm quite optimistic that most of the data will be open very soon. But now we need to make this data work together. We need to connect. We want to go from the train to the bus, and from the subway to another subway, and so on. So this is really the difficult part now. We have the data from all over the world. How do we mix them and how we connect them? So I give 2 examples. So one is a very interesting example because I now work in a company who is called Ghent, which is a French startup that sells train tickets all over Europe. So we sell train tickets of different companies. So we have a problem. So I want to buy a train ticket to Geneva. So first is the name, we need translations. So it's Genève, Ghent, Geneva, not Genova, which is in Italy, so we have to make everything clear there. And every company has its own ideas for the same station. So this is the Geneva airport. You see the French railway has one idea, the German has another one, the International Railway Union has another one. It looks very similar to the Deutsche Bahn one, but it's not the same. And OpenStreetMap has also his idea, and this is a way, that could be a point, and so on. So we want to compare what does the Dutch run says and what does the Z says. And we have one entry point, we have to ask them both systems. So we need to know every ID in every system, and we have to know that it's the same station. Seems obvious, but there's internal problems with that. There are also some semantics around a railway station. So if you go to Germany, you know that the main station in Germany is always called Hauptbahnhof. As a very good example is Hamburg-Altona. So in France, Gare de Lyon is not in Lyon, but it's in Paris. So it's very difficult, actually. It seems obvious when you live in a country, but when you go abroad, you need knowledge what is a station. And it's not that obvious, so we need to gather this data from all over the countries, the languages, the cultures, and try to make some sense of this. So another example is that when transportation data is open, I have the impression it's mostly always transportation companies. But in a big city or in Europe, all the networks are strongly interconnected. And it's not the operators, not the politics who open the data, it's just one transport company and not the other one. So when they're open, at last we're happy, we have all the data. At last we were asking this for 5 years and we have it now. And now we need to connect it. We need to say the bus, you can go to the subway. But you don't know how long it takes, you have to go around the block, or is it a direct access, and so on. So then we want to go further. We were always talking about public transit, but we want to have also rental bike and parking lots and taxi queues and so on. So those are very different systems. They're there, they're open, they're free to use, they have a good license, the data has been cleaned up. And now we need to connect everything together. And this is where the headaches begins. So let's say what do we do next week, next month, next years. So first, one thing we started working with Pieter is just starting to have a common vocabulary. Because if you have one data set which is in the European transmodel format, one is in the Google Transit specification format.
General transit.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. They have the same word that mean different things. So we already have a problem understanding, and we have to merge those two data together. So we need first to work on the vocabulary. So if you go on GitHub Open Transport, there is a vocabulary project where there are a few words that are already defined, and the issues open, and you can ask, okay, I need this concept, how should we call it? And then decide, let's work with this, and then make some mapping with that. So what do we want at the station.io? So we can go very far away. So we're working, okay, railway station is good, then subway station, then stopping points, and maybe taxi queues and so on. So we have to decide what has to be inside. What will be the format? Will be a CSV, a database, just a set of relations, and so on? What license? We didn't decide. How will we identify how to accept across different systems? So we already started the reflection, but it's extremely early. So if everybody wants to jump in, just right now go on station.io and give your comments, what you think about it, all those things. What should be in this knowledge base? So next month, we need to make some tools to merge or reuse or find the right tools that already exist, and import every open data that exists, just starting working it and growing slowly until we get the full world. And on the longer term, is there will be some chunk of data that will be missing, and at some point, okay, let's crowdsource it because it will never be open. Because maybe some informal network and there is no transit agency that has the data. It cannot be published because it doesn't exist, or they really do not want to. So there are some tools that will be developed or adapted or used, and we need those tools, and I hope really that the tools that we will use to crowdsource all this missing transport data will interact with station.io and with OpenStreetMap, because all along we're just making mapping. If you want to map how many stairs are in the connection between bus and subway, it's kind of a mapping. So we don't want to duplicate the effort with OpenStreetMap, so we have to work together. you should have that in mind. I have no answer because it's very difficult. There are a lot of technical problems, and I hope smart people will come up with great ideas. Okay, thank you. So, if you have any questions, you can ask me, tristan@github.com or on Twitter, and just go to station.io. It will redirect to the GitHub page. You can fill issues or read and suggest already on the very early reflections we had. Thank you.
So maybe instead of asking you on Twitter in a couple of hours, we can start the discussion now. That would be easier. I mean, do you have like any suggestion for like the next weeks? I feel like we need like to have priorities. There's like so much to do. The issue is like how do we like find the right priority and step by step move it further.
So one of these priorities is what Tristan just presented, is that we actually need that we have way too much identifiers right now all over the overall different organizations, and that we need to have a knowledge base which interconnects all these identifiers.
Yes, are you using linked data?
I'm a researcher in linked data, and I really want to do it the linked data way, but I don't want to burden the people who do not do linked data yet, or do not do linked data at all. I don't want to burden them with first learning RDF and learning all these systems.
Well, it's possible if we have it as XML, where you can really easily transfer it into RDF.
Yes.
And then you have a unique identifier for each station.
We're not going to use XML, but we decided on CSV.
But I mean, the issue is not the container. I mean, we're just talking about the wrapping and the conflation between different systems. You know, agencies will never be able to, you know, they've got their own internal identifier and they're not going to easily be able to change. So I think like the choice of wrapper doesn't matter as much as how do you unify those things across systems.
So if you look at the geonames, they already have a lot of stations. At least the countries I looked at. And if you work with geonames, there's the key value field type being over the objects where you have name and then the alternative names for the country, for the cities. So would it make sense to take the points of stations and geonames and just start extending that?
Yes, but there's so
as
much.
a way to kind of prototype things.
Yeah, well, right now, if you go to stations.io, you'll see that we already started out with some things, but geonames is not the only thing that already started doing this, and we don't really know what to use as a starting point. So we also have the GTFS data exchange, where there's a lot of timetable data, but they also contain all the stations. But we don't want to even stop with public transport. Because this is an open transport. It never said public transport. It's also about car parks. It's also about station. It's also about bicycles. So if we say stations, then we also mean a place where you can put your bike. It's also somewhere where you stop your trip. So we don't really know what to take as a starting point, and therefore we thought that we might take nothing as a starting point, but we just build further on everything. We try to just combine it.
So the problem with just listing synonyms for the names of places is that a lot of these are going to be numeric identifiers. So the numeric identifier for one station in, say, the Deutsche Bahn's website or data set might be exactly identical to the name. So it needs to be much more structured. You need to associate IDs with you need to first of all think of how to structure this, how to identify data sources.
So you would introduce new identifiers like that?
No, I don't think we have time right now to really talk through how to structure it. I was just saying, rather than using an existing service where we could just provide a lot of synonyms for the same places, I'm afraid it wouldn't work very well once you start getting into numeric identifiers and strings and characters, because we wouldn't know which data set has it. Right. And so another thing that you mentioned, Tristan, that I think we need to talk about is this vocabulary. If we're talking about first steps, things that we can do right away. I think it's already been several years that people have been talking about the mapping between transmodel vocabulary and GTFS vocabulary and others. I think all of us who are familiar with these subjects need to start committing to that because we already have a pretty good idea from practice how to do that. All of us are working with and stuff. So I think that's a very good first step.
So some more background about that. We're also creating the vocabulary, so github.com/opentransport/vocabulary, where there's just like a normal document everyone can read and everything, everyone can adapt. That actually is just providing descriptions for terms. Just like now we made a distinction between a stop area and a stop point, because you can arrive at the train at the platform, but that's an exact location. But the stop area is like the entire station, and you can actually also bike and put your bike in a station and then go towards the certain stop point. But the bike spot is also a stop point. So that's where we are trying to define all the words that people should should use to actually communicate about this kind of things or map towards. Because we are not going to change GTFS or we're not going to change transmodel, but we can actually create mapping between these and actually create a light version of yes.
We might, next to a vocabulary, and also a pretty good thing would be that we have a data model that corresponds to another data model. So a real, let's say an ERD, entity relation diagram of one standard compared to the other standard, and what are the relationships between them. That would for, let's say that would for the old people that using a transmodel be a step to the new world, GTFS or NetX or whatever happens in the next 2 years. And when facilitating this in station.io, that would directly give the subtle nuances of some terms that cannot be expressed in one other term from another standard. Because you name, for example, the stop ID or stop area, but then I ask from the NetX vocabulary, do you mean here K? Do you mean here stop place? Or and that again is a totally different meaning for a thing that is almost the same.
Yeah.
For anyone who's interested in this subject and wants to participate in this, I just want one other point that's related to what you're saying, Stefan, is that rather than reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch, we already have documents along these lines that have been created. There is actually there's a document related to NetX that explains the whole GTFS vocabulary in terms of NetX. We probably want to go a little bit beyond that, add a few more terms, but basically a lot of the work has been done. We need to collect all those different data. So rather than starting from scratch, anyone who's interested in this, we should go searching for those existing documents that provide, for example, NetX schemas for GTFS and things like that, and turn it into one single document.
Sorry for the naive question, but I know, for example, in France, there is a body which is in charge of mapping the territory. It's IGN, Institut Géographique National. What is the feedback from these kind of bodies? So they have a very powerful capacity of work. They like to do that.
I don't think they ever worked with transport. They have
that relationship with the consultant that changed a bit right now.
why. And
That's reasons.
the thing
They
is,
finance by selling the data.
Yeah.
IGN is public body.
Yeah.
the thing is not getting the data. Even if IGN would create, let's say Great Britain has an excellent national database of every stop point, public transport is not done. And the database is ready to use. But the thing is, how do we connect this with another database? And it's not getting the data, we have the data. And the thing is, we have to link it with other systems.
But when you said you're working with linked data, you can do really create the same as relationship between the Algebra and SNCF and then problem solve.
Yes, and that's indeed what I intend to do. But at first, we also need to have the underlying structure, which later will just be translated in CMS.
Okay.
Do you agree?
So you're looking for the vocabulary.
Sorry?
You were looking for the vocabulary.
So there's one step is vocabulary, and then I don't know much about all linked data and so on, but I trust Pieter on that. So the thing is, then we have to decide, one of the other projects is what we want to do. So just matching ideas is one step, but then we want to say from this station to this bus network is so long and there are 15 steps, so you cannot do it with a wheelchair. So it's really how the network connects between them. So matching the is just one first step. So, and I don't know how far it can go with linked data. If everything fits in, that's great. But we have already decided what we want to link before even linking them.
Yeah, it's a matter of defining the vocabulary. So if you have, someone has to find steps. So then put in the element steps. 5, maybe dimension 5, and then you have 5 steps.
Yes.
But someone has to do it. And someone has to develop the vocabulary, and then someone has to choose it.
That's exactly what we're trying to do is this vocabulary on getfit.com/vocabulary. But the problem is we don't really have like a panel which comes together every week like you would do with the ISA methodology to create ontology. But right now we're just trying to crowdsource it by people just doing pull requests and doing discussions using these pull requests.
Isn't there a WCC
on open transport?
I just wanted to add.
There are people who suggest that we should create.
I just wanted to add what you said. It's not about you don't have the data; it's already there. I would question that when you talk about the whole world, because we're working in developing countries, and I would question that a lot.
Yes, of course. I mean, it would take ages to just build the system, and yeah, the thing. My point was rather. There's a lot of data already, and we are already struggling connecting them. I remember one event was when Paris, the RATP, which owns the buses and the subway, opened the data, and then the SNCF, who runs the suburban trains, which is already a huge network. They both opened the data separately, and then when my previous company wanted to merge them to create an API next to the video, it took like days of merging them because even the points were not tagged in the same position, they were like 200 meters apart. So there was a huge loss of time just because we could not merge two layers on the same level. And of course there's a whole problem of getting the data, and I was saying so we really need tools to get data in emerging countries and even France. If you want a high-speed train, you have to process them, cannot get them. But those are very. It's not one for another. We will have a problem at any point, and we should start already the development.
Okay. But before the non-technical people start to sleep, we'll go towards the next problem, which is less technical. Or can I say that?
Yeah.
What is concerned this discussion that we have right now? This is exactly the discussion we want to have in the Open Transport mailing list of OKFN and on the GitHub repository. So please, if you now contributed to the discussion, please let's take it online. Joost?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Joost. Joost Colpaert. I work at a company in Holland, Belgium, to make trip planner, and we're working together with Andrew, working on open trip planner and other open trip planning subjects. And we group together under the name Planner Stack. And we were mainly concerned with creating an ecosystem of an open ecosystem of trip planners and trip planning data. Before I dive into my problems, I wanted to share with you the vision of labor for trip planning. We came to look at the whole chain of getting the trip planner consumers in these 5 layers. First of all, that's the transit operators, they have the data. Layer 1 is what is called in Holland the NDOV, sort of like one-stop shop for transit data. So it's just an aggregation level. Then you have layer 2, which does validation integration and gives you basically the data necessary to run the planner. We have layer 3, which is the planning algorithm itself. So basically OpenTripPlanner in our case, but there are other planning software. And then above the planning software, there's the consumer facing application. So it's a trip planner that you visit the website or the product. So what we noticed is that as we were doing trip planners, we started to see more problem with the data, basically. And so I have here 3 problems that follow each other, basically. And the first one is that it's very hard to see what data is available at all. So if you want to make a trip planner, you usually pick an area first. So I want to make a trip planner for Holland. And so the first question is what operators are there? And then the question, data do they have? The status of this data. And then sometimes these operators throw data over a wall, and then they think they did open data, and so they go to the subject. That's not really useful if you want to host a trip planning service. So that's the final one. So this is a problem that we think we should approach by creating a visual data repository, which is user-centric, so not viewed as viewed from the operators, but as viewed from the people who are using this data, so people who do trip planning. And we basically need to know which operators we are talking about, and then create visual data registry, and then use this to show the gaps in the data, either in the ability, the status, or in quality. And Stefan Koning already did a quick mock-up of how this could look like for Holland. And these are all the lines, the operators. And on the right side, you already see expiration dates. And so this is very important to know that the data for Amsterdam, for example, expires in 3 days. So this shows you that if your data doesn't come in the planner, it will be useless in Amsterdam in 3 days. And stuff like this is important if you really want to host a trip. Go beyond just the book. So then the next problem becomes, so OpenTripPlanner is slowly becoming something you can just download, run, install, and get running on the computer basically. But getting a good data feed is still a problem. So what do we say to people who want to do trip planning? We say, well, there's a bad data. I think we should go. I think we should be able to provide so that we can provide feed for people. And this means that based on the availability and the knowledge of what data is there, we could do validation, integration, and have downloads for people who want to do trip planning for certain areas. So we could provide feeds for Luxembourg or the Netherlands or Belgium.
What do you then exactly mean by integration?
So all the operators will provide their own data sets, and so we have to integrate them into one data set. One data set will be fed into a trip planner.
So how do you say you use Dutch format, A7?
At the moment, for integration. So this is just planned, right? And so we have prototypes of this, and very, very near production level prototype for the Netherlands. And we accept these OKFN 1.6 basically, but we generate GTFS and GTFS real time. Yeah. But when we start looking at cost, beyond just guidance, was much more difficult. So suppose we have this feed for people who want to do trip planning. We basically only have one channel from operators to planners, and that's not really what we're here for, right? We're crowdsourcing, getting this data to be open. So we need to have a way of starting to become owners of this data ourselves or co-owners. Two main problems are here. There's smaller operators who will not be able to provide the data. And there is the fact that many people know the timetable of their own operators. Why shouldn't they be able to contribute timetables and other information back to the operator, back to the feed? And so I think we need some kind of open stream network transit data. And that would mean having an editor for transit data, being able to export this data and re-download this. And this would also be used as a feedback channel for the transit operators themselves. When you find problems in your timetables, it would be very useful to have a feedback channel to tell them that there are problems in these timetables. Because at the moment they just get emails of angry customers. There is a place that we could start using for this, which is this website. It's the Open Transport Group, I think, that's it then, repository at the moment. I think this could be a very good place to start building out this much more rich data economy for public transport. I have one bonus problem, and that's operator incentives. We found that operators are only incentivized at one particular point in time, which is when they want to basically perform tenders, and at all other moments in time, everything they do is just cost. And so I think we need to come up with ideas of getting something back to the operators when we ask them for it. I don't have a solution, but I think it's very important. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Good question. Is there a standard around this stuff? Because a lot of times you see like bus operator will give you a horrible PDF of the timetables. But is there and folks here seem to talk about in acronyms about the different standards, which is fine. Is there a document basically saying if you go talk to a local bus company, you should hit them on the head with this European standard, and they, you know.
I will say do both statements, I think, but just tell them to use GTFN.
Okay.
So does someone disagree with this?
That's the incoming format, so they will putting up-to-date data.
That might sound horrible Excel file somewhere.
It's unlikely they're making internal schedules and stuff.
As raw as possible.
Just a question, because it was confirmed, I mean, you were so firm saying GTFN. What's Siri?
Siri is a real-time standard, and I think the question for real-time is a lot different than. I think everyone.
But I mean, that's where we want to go.
But I mean, I think before you go, there's the argument for real-time and there's the argument for static. You're often talking to two different people at the agency for those, so you kind of have to fight those battles separately. But I think if you're asking for scheduled data, I think there weren't many hands that show up to say that GTFS is kind of the de facto standard or format for scheduled data around the world. But there are other formats, there are other standards. But for real time, I think the case isn't as clear. There's Siri in Europe, there's GTFS real time, there are other standards, and it's you can. I think asking for any one of those is fine. I mean, because if the agency provides anything, you're already doing better than nothing. And I think your also point is well taken that at some point, if they just don't have the resources to put it in a standard format, it's better to get something that you can work with the converter. It makes it harder for guys who are doing trans-European routing, but that's that's their problem to solve, right?
Whatever they're able to provide regularly is the most important.
I mean, Siri Lite is something, or Siri is something we can put out very easily.
But again, Siri is a real-time format.
Real-time and GTFS real-time is also kind of
yeah.
So I mean, to say okay, we have two.
I think in a more
They
general
use this
sense,
or that, but it's better than.
in a more general sense, it's safe to say that Brian hesitated when he said standards. Said okay, it's a format because there are standards. There are things like NetX and transmodel and so on, which are validated standards for transit data. The problem is that they're the kind of thing that have gone through many versions without ever necessarily being heavily used or implemented, or at least that was the case in other contexts. We've kind of seen the same thing happen in Europe. They tend to be very, very capable of describing all the minute operational details of the transportation system, but they're very difficult to handle for agencies that are not used to exporting this kind of data. The difference is something like GTFS has been entirely created through the practice of exporting data and using it for journey planners. So it contains only the vocabulary that's necessary for that purpose, whereas in, say, transmodal, there are 5 different ways to say the same thing, and any software that's supposed to read or write that format ends up being very complex. So the reason why everyone would be saying GTFS is because everyone knows what a GTFS feed looks like, and it's quite simple.
And why wouldn't you say then just go with GTFS real-time and then forget Siri?
Because I think in fact that for web services you don't really need something like a very specific standard or an XML namespace, because in the end everyone is just specifying their own web service according to their own needs and according to their own applications they want to provide. For instance, if you look at the Dutch railway system, they provided an open data API. It's not according to a certain standard, right? Yeah. Okay. If you look to the Swiss one, the opendata.ch one, it's not according to a certain standard, and that's from Openology. So I think to answer your question in a very pragmatic way is ask for GTFS. The other things will come with it as they want. Just ask for GTFS.
I think it's actually, when we talk about real time, I mean, I've talked about this before, that a lot of agencies provide these high-level APIs with very specific targeted applications in mind, which is great for like building what are the next 3 buses at this stop application. But I think when we look at the success of GTFS, a lot of the applications that you showed up there are only possible with bulk access to data that comes in a format like GTFS. If an agency is providing its own routing API, you wouldn't be able to do any of the things that you want to do. And I think with real time, we're seeing the same sort of track, where agencies are like, well, I opened up a REST API that gives you sort of incremental access to our data, which allows you to do some really nice applications, but it also severely limits you in what you as developers and ultimately what kind of things we can build. Building a real-time trip planner requires bulk access to real-time data. If you have to make a request for every stop in the system through a REST API, you're going to have problems.
Can we make a quick distinction between this is an always upcoming discussion? Your statement is very correct, but your view is a stop-based view versus a trip-based view. And what we want from real-time data as community is a trip-based information view opposed to what is delivered by companies in apps as a stop-based view. So when you're looking at the stop where you are at the station, you're seeing what trains arrive and depart. This is one application which is based on the fact that you have the raw data which is about all the trips in the network. So it's not better or worse. One is not better or worse if you have because it represents exactly the same data, but we want to have it at a higher abstraction level and in a different view. So that's
Are there people from the UK? Okay. Do you know about your transport data or your railway data? It's in fact really low level. So this is like I don't know whether do you have experience with
you've got Journey Planner, something organised by Transport for London called Journey Planner, which you can take either a street address or a tube station address or an overground address or a bus stop, and for both ends of your journey, and they will fill in everything in between, including walking where there are direct points on the public transport grid that immediately connect. It will say, take this bus to this stop, walk 200 meters to here, and then get a tube train that runs here. So it's actually pretty well connected. It gives you multiple sort of variants of the same journey you want to take.
But it's public access to a journey planning application rather than access to data.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So Pieter means probably network rail, which with the open data, so that you have data available at the signaling level of the track.
Yeah.
So that you actually know that the signal is working or not, or what alterations in the speed or the speed limits or virtual speed limits have been placed on the track. That's a pretty low-level information that you might not want as a journey planner.
I would say too low level.
But some people do want it because it can give you a very interesting perspective on upcoming delays. Again, when we look at this layer model that Joost presented, at layer 2 or at layer, the conversion between layer 2 and 3 is actually the prognosis of when the train will arrive. Signaling level information is very nice, but probably not what we want here. And asking for it is probably also asking for much more information than you can theoretically handle in an app.
Okay, just let's go back to the original discussion that we wanted to have, I think, or that you wanted to have. It was not because otherwise we are ending up in acronym discussions again. What can we do? What was your exact question? What can we do to make data more available? Or?
Yeah. What can we give back to operators?
Well, that was the last question, yes.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point. I mean, if you have a standard, you can have an app that can, so you have several apps that can use the word, and then your city can show up. So I'm not going to develop an app for each city, and I'm not also downloading as a user app for each city. So I want one that routes it all. And so either you're in or out, and if you're not adhering to the standard, you're out. So you don't want to visit the city.
Isn't the problem that operators don't care about their users?
Yeah, but they will.
They will.
At one point.
They will at one point.
You just have to start somewhere.
I mean, I think that was true for North America. Like, I mean, if you look at the adoption of GTFS, where there's a lot of agencies who have no money and no resources, when Google started doing trip planners and other agencies or other tools as well, a lot of agencies are like, oh, why is this city on there, but we're not, so we can get that up. I think in Europe, I think the agencies, for whatever reason, are better funded, and they're actually usually able to provide some pretty nice tools on their own. And so their argument is, why should we get control of this data, of these, of our users? We know this better than anybody else. They should be using our tools, and we were willing to provide them. So I think it's like a harder case to make here to say.
Yeah, but then you tell them.
Let's ask an operator.
Thank you. I work for an operator in San Francisco, and I think this is a great question. Is that I am personally I feel part of your community, so I feel altruistic in giving this data. I just want to do it for fun. But I know other people in my agency are not the same way. And so I think that's a great question, which you asked at the very end, is what is the incentive for my colleagues at my agency in San Francisco or other agencies to give the data? And I think one of the main things that we have an issue is we don't provide very reliable service, as you all might know. And I think there's a question of how can we do this more? How can we understand our system? What is the business intelligence tools that we can have to do this? And unfortunately, a lot of folks, I think in operations, don't necessarily ask that question, but they don't even know. And I think it'd be great if the community were to take open data and start showing it off. Like, this is what a BI tool, business intelligence tool, can show and improve your operations. We had one example recently where at a hackathon, someone developed an iPad app for our supervisors on the street to see where buses were late and early, so they could take action and make the buses more on time. And that was the first time somebody ever took our data and made it into something that our operations planning could use. And so the sort of internal, like how Salesforce captured the internal business for customer relations, there isn't someone that has done that yet in transit.
Didn't was it Jay Nath?
Yeah, Jay Nath.
He kind of said that he did this very rough calculation that they'd save around about $100 million a year on contact centre inquiries because of the release of training.
Yeah,
very real, tangible benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah, they don't have to call anymore. They can use Nextbus and those kind of apps. And I think demonstrating that value is also another big thing. Because I think you're right. That incentive of how we can improve operations, save money, make things more efficient is still on the table. It still hasn't been grabbed yet.
got a different problem. In your last slide, you said what incentives you could give to operators to open data. I've got transit agencies in southern Germany who are even willing to open the data, but they have no freaking clue how.
Oh, I think that's. Is it a technical thing or an
Yeah, the problem is
organizational
that the
thing?
technical hurdles are quite high because they're facing ancient systems dating back to the 1990s, and which also look the part and feel like that. So they've got very absurd internal data representation, which I am only partially making sense of right now. And most importantly, they're very small transit agencies, often spanning only 2 or 3 districts. So they want to get on board. They have still this German tinfoil hat mentality. They will give you the schedule data, but not the real-time data, because they are the only sole provider of the real, true, trademark, real-time information, and anybody listening to somebody else is a fool. So they're not letting go of that. But even with the schedule data, they have a problem with that.
Most of the time I feel it's not technical, like techniques is one thing, but they're like just afraid of opening something that's not perfect. Like that's like the first like layer of the problem, and then there is the other layer of the real time, which is like we are the only one that should provide that, because that's our information. I feel in Europe it's much more like palpable that they want to keep that for themselves because they have like this issue of like they're already building services. They want to be like railway operator, but also like services like operators, and there is like a kind of fear of like duplication, that everybody is going to play around and like all these services and it's going to duplicate and not be user friendly. But I feel but I know like that's what like 2 years ago. I feel now it's like much more like
the most user friendly app, right?
No, I know exactly.
That's their inside view, though. They think that they should be in the moving people from A to B as frictionless as possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's
but
like a
I
cultural
feel
thing.
like in the providing information about their trip business too, and that's.
But I feel now it's starting like to be like much better, at least in France, because like they understood that they could like share a risk of innovation with other people, and they could then work with them with the data to like improve some system that they cannot solve. So there is like once they like identify a real problem that they cannot solve by themselves, they know that they should open this kind of data. I mean, it's like not pure open data where just you open and you wait for people to play with it. It's like, we have a problem, we have this data, let's try to work together. So I feel like it's much better right now, and it's going further, and we are on the right path.
What's the relationship like between you and the staff? Do you guys have a good relationship with staff at agencies? Sometimes.
I mean, you need to be part of them almost, to like be the relationship between the community, what they want, and their like organizational constraints. You need like intermediaries, because if you put like we try to do like reports sometimes with hackathon and stuff.
What I noticed in the agencies in France is that it depends who you're talking to in the agency. Internally, it's so fragmented that I would have people come up to me and ask me to help them make maps of the locations of vehicles in their own company, because they can't get them from the people who have that data. So there are certain people who are really excited about open data and want to do everything possible and are trying to organize events and call everyone up. And there are other people in the same company that are absolutely trying to stop them every time they do everything. That's just
So basically you do it foreign pause, because you already have your supporters within the agency.
Yeah, but they tend to have different roles in the company. It's usually people who are communications and so on and understand how much the public wants this or for it.
I think this is an important point because so I work with Chloé at 5x5, and something that I've been hearing a lot in this discussion is the they. And something that took us a while to understand is that there is no they. Like when you're speaking to something as massive as say the SNCF, there are like 100 possible doors that you can knock on. And you just have to figure which one to knock on and what message they want to hear, and then it progresses that way. And that's how we started. We knocked on one door that seemed like it was slightly ajar already. Went into Greater Paris, working with mostly people that were handling marketing at first because they thought this was interesting. And then after that, it filtered upwards, and we were able to sort of help spread that message. Other services saw what we were doing, wanted to spread that. So I mean, like when you're doing kind of like strategic evangelization when it comes to open data and transport, sometimes like sometimes it's not the IT services, it's not the tech guys that you need to convert. And they're not always the easiest because they're the ones that tend, well, based on our experience anyway, they're the ones that tend to feel most protective about the data.
I think it's mainly the marketing people who have been. When we talk to marketing people, they're the ones who push the hardest, and they have budgets and they have access to upper management. They're very good people.
But that's an issue as well, because first it's very good to push the envelope because they're like very motivated, they know the output, they're like evangelizing inside the company. But then you need to have like everybody around the table at some point because they would like take like all the technical aspect away because it's like cultural, they're not into techniques.
So I just wanted to say we must at this stage make advocacy and to inform people in their own language, in the marketing language for the marketing, the technical for the technical, why they should do it and how to do it. So if we don't produce at some point documents clear, tutorials, it will not happen. If you show it, then it will reach much easier to do, to overcome the
Before even saying why to do it, we have to inform people why they should stop being afraid of doing it.
Yes.
And I think one thing we need to keep saying is that for everyone who's afraid they're going to be replaced and other people are going to take over their role of passenger information, is to cite, for example, I think the case of London, where they opened all the data and people, and the role of, I think, Transport for London in providing data has only increased since then, because passenger information has become a more visible subject, and people go looking for information even more than they did before and go to the source.
Can I just say this doesn't really work when you have private providers providing public service. So we have a situation, there are lots of cities within the UK where the public transportation is run by private companies who have a specific interest in not releasing real-time data because they feel they'll be performance managed and that they'll put themselves at risk of receiving fines from the operator. So there's a different narrative and a different argument that has to be enforced because unlike Transport for London, the rest of the UK is not, the transit agencies don't have the authority. And we've been in meetings with bus operators, especially so in the area where I am, there's 40 different bus operators, all
This
working.
is a regulation problem because in the UK it's not compulsory to publish the data, and this is another part of the problem.
And with that, let's go to the last talk before the final bonus talk. It's the final problem where we can discuss something. I don't want to down.
Hello. I don't know if the slides if anyone. I just put my nose I'm Christian Helping. I'm from search.ch. That's a Swiss website. We have some similar useful services for the Swiss people. Most famous, we are most famous for our phone book. Then we have a weather. We have a Swiss map, and we have also routing, and that means routing for cars on our map, and of course what this is all about today, the public transportation routing. And yeah, I'll go into the needs of a company doing public transportation data without having it.
You can also talk more broadly about the private transport needs because it's really open transport. We're not.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
okay. So I'm used to the term public transportation. I'm sorry, but I mean the same thing. So every transportation that one could access access to. Yeah. First of all, about our service, it's timetable.search.ch. It just started out with some departure tables, which are on our map when you hover on a point of interest that is a transportation stop, and there you could see the next departures. And then in 2010 we implemented the public transport routing for the whole Switzerland. We use our own algorithm for that, and we have a very simple user interface and very efficient one. And we think of it as much more simple and usable than other interfaces. So we're just what we want is just to have an easy to use service for general public, and of course it's also integrated into other of our services like the map. And so just why do we do our own algorithm in Switzerland? We have, for example, SPP.ch, like that's the biggest railway company, and they basically have all the routing data available, and so the situation is pretty good in that sense that if you are inside Switzerland, you can go there and look anywhere. And like for us, if you would integrate that, we could do sub requests to SPP, and there's also like last year in the hackathon, many people made projects like around doing sub requests on existing proprietary services. And why do we do that for our own? So first of all, we want to be independent. So the SPP and many other Swiss companies use a system called HAFAS, and well, that has some bugs, and also we want to be independent of outages of other sites. And yeah, actually it was an outage of SPP.ch which pushed our release in 2010 forward for the service. Then we want to have our own parameters for the algorithm. So if you just go to some operator sites, you just have one route. So that's one way to look at it. But you could also imagine new startups having fancy ideas. For example, startup which want to do like round trips. Well, that case is usually not really done by the usual companies. Also, we focus also like on the most common queries users have, but other companies might have service. Well, how can I plan a trip where I can take my bicycle all the way, or very complicated thing, or as mentioned, like going above borders, going to China. I don't know, different questions like that. So that's why to do an own algorithm. Also, there's one last point: speed. So if you're doing sub requests in behind to proprietary sites, you won't have the speeds. You are slower than they are, and yeah, you're not responsive, and you can't do deep integration into other services. So about the data, well, we wanted to have the data for all transportation for Switzerland. There is no open data available for everything. There might be some local bus companies, I don't know, which open up the data, but for us it would be very hard to get everything. So what do? We just crawl data, the departure tables from SPP.ch. And there are several problems with that. So first thing is time. Well, we don't want to overload their servers, so we have to do it very carefully, very slowly. I think it takes some days to weeks until we have the full data. And so we do not have an exact snapshot. It might be that once we started crawling, they change their data, and so some things might not fit. So there might be errors because of that, and there are no IDs for the train run. So as mentioned earlier, like what we can crawl is just a station-based view, but not how is the word?
Trip-based view.
Trip-based. We don't have a trip-based view, so we do not have IDs for like trains, buses, trams or so. We have to, with heuristics, we have to put the departure tables together, so which one connects to which one corresponds to which. It's very hard. It works, but it's a lot of work. And also, so that's just for the basic data. So basic timetable data. It's very hard to have additional information like. Is there bicycle transport? Is it accessibility for wheelchairs? And that problem is basically because of the stop-based, departure-based view, so that you can't interconnect this data very good. There's also no real-time data, and of course also very hard to get occupant. SPB.ch, they have a really cool feature where they put the occupancy. So that's also like one kind of additional information, like how full a train is expected to be. So it's just some more additional information we don't have in there. So I just state what data we as a company, we as a trip planning company need. And just like as input for the puzzle there, I heard also like the other things like the station connecting thing.
Stations.io.
The stations.io.
Yeah.
So we're lucky that we have unique identifiers for all stations. But I mean that's another need. So for us, well, the first thing of all is like basic transportation data, arrival and departure times in a trip-based view. The coordinates of the stops, so that's bit covered by stations.io, and of course the interconnections of them. Then all the additional information that is available, like accessibility by wheelchair, restaurant cars, bicycle transportation, there are lots of them. And this information I think is really cool for startups to interconnect and to make sites for like niche markets, where like the operators wouldn't care to make a site for like very special problems of, I don't know, I have a wheelchair and I want to rent a wheelchair service somewhere, or I don't know, and I think there's lots of things we don't even imagine by using such data. Then is the thing with the real-time data, the delays, cancellations. Also, if there are information about like substitutes, like bus connections, like if a train doesn't run, what are the substitute things? So that's not really planned, but like SPB.ch has some interface where they have like messages, what is going on. But this data could also be available openly and interconnected with all the other data. And as I mentioned before, like the occupancy information, so that's just another type of additional information. So, and of course all that data should be available not just from one operator, but from all of them. Because like for us, if we get if some city says, well, here is our data, we can just say, well, it's not good enough for us because we want to do more. So, and other people might say, well, you have the Swiss data, we want to have whole of Europe, or to have the interconnecting system. So it should be available across the board for everything. And so, further steps, what didn't get mentioned, or I think just once. So in my opinion, like in Switzerland, public transportation gets funded a lot by the state. And in my opinion, is everything that's substantially funded by public money, by the state money, should open up their transportation data by law. So, and I think, I think it's reasonable enough if they're funded substantially, they should give back to the public their basic data. So that's really thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, we have time for 2 questions, not more. Right?
No, not yet.
They extract data from the Hatterstam, which covers the Swiss railway.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to use it, but you're not supposed to start, so I assume it's really
Is it really complete and up to date? So
it's up to date as often as Atlas releases a done.
And is that for all the what's the service?
I was in Open 10B. 10B is one of the database of the Hatterstam, and Open 10B is just one extractor from this data into JSON data. So you can read this Hatterstam, which has some timetables for whole Europe. And the code is not perfect, but you get the timetables, which is more.
Yeah, I think I looked into it last year, but I think it didn't match all of our requirements. But I think I have to look
most environment to improve it and extract more information. But
Open Plan B.
I
Yes.
was going to ask, does SBB know you're scraping? And what do they think about it?
It's actually one from SB here. So
they do. Of course we do.
The open transport data also works with our.
And you like it, and you guys come to our events. So
No,
not
not
officially,
open,
but we're working together.
Okay, what showed that if you start using their data streams for your official, it's not going to work because they need your. Don't forget this. Okay, but the last
question: are you opening your data? That's a good question. It hasn't come up since, so nobody asked for it.
So you steal data from him, you put the ads on it, your bosses are making millions, and that's okay.
No, so if we could open,
actually,
no, I think we could open up. We don't have problems with that, but it's just nobody asked for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Christian. Give him another. I think with these 3 talks we have seen 3 very important problems. One is accessibility of the data. Another is the interlinking of the data once it is made available. And another one is to actually start to reuse the data to actually provide the right information. And now, as you all have been very patiently waiting for our main track talk, Roman Prokofiev, you can give. So, why I invited him, because he is going to give a slightly different talk, and that's because he's a researcher. So that means that researchers tend to give other talks, but they do research about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in advance. So now I want to make you a dream about what it will happen in the future.
Thanks, Pieter. So I will also talk what's the follow-up of what Christian told, because I'm Roman Prokofiev. I'm from University of Fribourg, which is here in Switzerland. So it will also build on those things that Christian talked about. And I will talk about how we can use this open transport data to make to provide the real value for the users from my side, which will be building their profiles to predict where they want to go. So I will start with this, with the data that I'm using. So last year in 2012 there was a great event, Swiss Open Data Camp, which was geared toward transportation data. And during this event, it was released the API to access SDB data in a nice format, in a nice JSON format. And I guess so. Fabian is here, who is I suppose the main maintainer of this API. So as Christian told, the Swiss SDP data is provided in Hapas format, which is this system that provides data in XML format, which I found really not developer friendly format. It's really hard. And this repository Open Data CH Transport converts this XML data into the JSON data. So I guess this Hapas system is used also by Deutsche Bahn and probably some other European country, but I'm not sure. So basically this API provides three main, let's say, objects, which is locations. So you can get the station by name, like the ID of the station, or you can get the station, the nearest station by coordinates, by the GPS coordinates. Then there are connections which allow you, so SBB does this planning, so you can specify the initial station and the destination station, and SBB will give you a set of routes which will tell you how you can travel from one station to another with corresponding times. And then the last one, which I'm using, is the station boards. It provides you just the station board of each station. So which the departure station boards of each station, which buses or trains are departing from this station. And initially I started to play with this API, so it was initially for fun. I wanted some application that will show what buses are available from the station nearest to me. So by now this app is available at the Google Play, and yeah, so it was improved over time. So we can see the example of an interface that it shows for Fribourg, for example. So it showed you the closest buses that are coming, and this is really valuable because it allows you to, like, while sitting at your work or coming to the station to plan where you need to go, and you see when buses are arriving, which are close to you. So this does not involve at the moment any research, but because so I was playing with it and I wanted to get some initial amount of users, and to get the initial amount of users I need to do something useful because people are not interested like to participate easily in research. So you need to provide some valuable services, and this service is really valuable. So I get right now there are a few thousand people who are active users of this application, and I receive valuable feedback from them and reviews on the Google Play that they like this application and request for other features. So recently I also added the calendar connections, like if you have the events in your calendar, so in the near future, which is today or tomorrow connections, and it is not expired yet, like you can still get there in time. It will show you the corresponding connections, how you can get to the station. So I have this example of OKFN venue here when I need to get there from Fribourg, where I live. Right? And now we're coming to the research part. So we have this data, we know the users access application all the time. They are interested in going somewhere, and we want to then predict. So next time they access it, we want to filter out the connections to say which connections are they interested in. So in the previous slide you see there are two first buses because they go in both directions, right? They always go, if is not the final destination. They always go in both directions. But probably person is interested in only one connection. So based on the historical data, which we want to model as a graphs in a different dimensions, which I will talk in a few minutes. We want to predict where people want to go. Like I have a few examples here. So this is a simple one when a person goes from like imaginary home to a university and back, but it's really abstract, probably never happens in reality. And here is a bit more complex situation. You have time, and the person go to one station and then coming back to another. So it's really not straightforward how you can predict those data. And we have a student working on this, and we will have more students, I guess, working on this that will evaluate different models, probably something related to these graphs, and to see how we can predict those profiles and how good we are at predicting those profiles. So I know there is also industrial interest in this. Like I guess many of you know Google Now app, but it's not. So the algorithm behind Google Now is not open. We don't know how it works. So I think it is interesting to foster the research in this direction, and it will serve for good of everyone to see how we can do this. So there are a few considerations. So the dimensions in which we can put the stations, the time, like the person accesses the station, you can record the time, and you can split the day on either intervals or it can be continuous, depending on what model do you have. And then there is day of week, like Monday, Tuesday, because probably many people can have different schedules based on different days. Like students, they have different courses, maybe in a different universities each day. Like we have in Fribourg joint master program among 3 universities. They can go each day to different university. Or with another dimension can be weekday, or is it a weekday like Monday to Friday, or is weekend? Because it's kind of obvious that people on the weekends go to vacation if it's a normal schedule, like you work from Monday to Friday and the weekend you go to a different place. And you can also model time difference. Like you can arrive, if you have a flexible schedule, you can arrive at work earlier or later, but you probably need to stand at work like 8 hours, but then the exact time will not be useful if you arrive earlier or later, but the time difference will serve that. And other considerations here is that there might be intermediate stops which people go through when they travel, so these profiles need to take those intermediate stops also in consideration. Like if you know the final destination, you should show the road to a final destination and not to an intermediate stop. And this also have to be modeled somehow. And if you have scheduled trips, and right now I don't have this functionality, but there is a high probability that you want a connection back to where you came from your scheduled trip. Right. And then, what are the future perspectives? It's so right now the data is not stored on the API, so I have my own fork of the Swiss this open transport Swiss API, which I deployed on Heroku. So it's not I don't share any user sensitive information, but it would be really interesting to get to like aggregate the data, the user profiles based on the location, and offer some additional functionality based on the flows of the users in the current location. But this, of course, raises many privacy issues. Like you all know the story with Prism, and Heroku is a US company. Like even in Android, if I store this locally, I cannot be sure if it's not accessed, right? But probably if no one is interested in, I can be safe. But it's a very complicated problem. privacy, and I don't have the solution for it. So, and coming to the problem that Tristan raised, so probably if sufficiently many people will use applications like this, so the incentive for public transport companies would be to provide back this data to do accurate traffic estimations and predictions for them, because so I don't know how they model traffic for now, like this occupancy probably is based on the ticket buying or something for the train, so I don't know if someone from SBB can answer this question, but if you have the actual number of people traveling this in the train, you can model the transport flow and do accurate traffic predictions. Yeah, so to conclude, I would like to say that this application was not possible yesterday, and because of the opening of the data, it is possible today. And I think together we can bring much more ideas into this area. So thank you.
One question, I'm from this famous train company in Switzerland.
Okay.
Just one question. If you ask in your application how you know people are using the bus. So if I'm used as a student, I know 7:30 my bus starts, and at the third day I don't use new apps anymore because I know this bus will start. So how do you know the people use the bus? You just capture the usage of the timetable research, or do you?
So how do I know when the person accesses the station board, or?
How do you know to take the actual bus?
Or
because you're using the data.
You would like to have a history of this guy, and what kind of history you produce?
So the history, because you don't know if the person uses bus, but when next time person accesses it, his location changed. So you can, with some probability, I'm not talking exactly, but that he traveled this route with some connection. So you can say that he traveled this connection in the morning when he previously accessed his bus, for example, and then back the next day. So you can only make predictions based on the previous data that he used.
Have you looked into Android geofencing APIs?
Not yet.
So that's something you could do if you
Yeah.
don't trust.
I know. It was released this year, probably. Yeah. I would like to take a look.
So unfortunately we have to wrap up to leave from the room, but we can continue the conversation just right here. Thank you very much for coming. You all are subscribing to the Open Transport List.
Transport.okfn.org. If you're not yet subscribed, go to that page right now, but first go outside, then go on the page and really subscribe to the mailing list. We would really like your opinions on everything we are doing. Thank you very much.